How many of you have been to Newday before? Show of hands. Yeah, quite a few of you. Very cool. Okay. 2 years ago, there was a song on the album, the Newday album. It was actually the title track, and it starts just with one of these. It starts with a kick drum. Now, don't whisper it to your friends. Don't say what you think it might be. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to do this little kick on the kick drum, and when you work out what the song is, when you think you know, it's the title track from the 2011 Newday album. That's a big hint. I want you to start singing it, because you guys sound so good tonight, okay? I want you to start singing it. This girl down here is like, is it Justin Bieber? No, it's not Justin Bieber. Okay, let's try this. You ready? You ready? You think you know what it might be? Hopefully the guys hook this up properly, okay? Start singing when you know it. One more time, come on. Loud, real loud. Okay, final time, really loud as you can. Yes, give yourself a round of applause. Good. So good. So good. There is a line in this song. This is what it says. It says, we're free to live as sons and daughters in your house. We are chosen and invited to run in. I want to start with a question tonight. I want to start by asking you this. What does it mean to be free? What does freedom look like? It says it in this song. We are free to run into your house. We are free to come in as sons and daughters. What does it mean to be free? Freedom is something that we hear a lot about in our culture. In fact, you're in the city of Brighton tonight. You enjoying Brighton tonight so far? Yeah, good. So good to have you guys here. Brighton is a city that takes freedom very seriously. People pursue all types of freedom in this city. In fact, there are people in this city who have given their lives to seeing people that are in slavery here in Brighton. Maybe that's in the sex trade. Maybe that's in another type of slavery that is here in this city. It could very well be in the city or the town that you come from as well. People have given their lives to see people released from slavery and to be brought into freedom. Many of you have probably seen films that have to do with freedom. Or if you've listened to your favorite Radio 1 DJ, maybe you've heard them talk about freedom. There's a song that came out a little while ago by Lily Allen. Who's heard of Lily Allen? Quite a few of you, okay? There's a song called The Fear. And there's some really interesting lines in this song that I think kind of get at this topic. This is what she says. She says, forget about guns, forget ammunition, because I'm killing them all on my own little mission. No, I'm not a saint. I'm not a sinner. Everything's cool as long as I'm getting thinner. Do you guys know the chorus to this song? Some of you? Should we try this together? You guys are such a good choir tonight. I just want to give you opportunities, okay? Opportunities to sing. This is nice. It's like a big family get-together. All right. Let's try this together. I'm going to start the first 3 words, and then I'm going to stop, or I will absolutely murder this song, okay? It will not sound good if I keep going, okay? Everybody together. Here we go. I don't know what's right, what's real. If you sing, help the others out if you know it. Come on. Okay, we're losing it a bit. Let's go. Okay, this really loud. Very good. Okay, very good. I love the honesty in this song. I love the honesty that Lily Allen has in this song. If you know the other verses, she's talking about all of the different types of things that she has tried to pursue. If you know the verses in the rest of the song, she talks about, I want money. I want to be famous. I want diamonds. I want all of these things that promise me freedom. And what she's saying in this song is that in her pursuit of all of these things that promise her freedom, she wants money. She wants to be able to do whatever she wants. So she wants lots of money, or she wants fame, or she wants diamonds and stuff. In her pursuit of all of these things, they all promise freedom, but what has actually happened? It's the exact opposite that's actually taken place. And she's honest about it in the song. She says, but I'm getting taken over by fear. I get taken over by fear of, what if I don't achieve these things? What if I don't get all the money that I want? What if I don't get all the diamonds? What if I don't get the fame that I want to rise to? And she's already quite famous. Fear can be crippling. It can completely take you over. You might be thinking, well, I'm not a famous pop singer, so I can't really relate to this type of song. Well, maybe. But I know for me, when I was around your age, when I was around 14 or 15 years of age, more than anything, what I wanted was just to be seen as kind of being popular among my friends. That's what I really wanted. I wanted to be seen as the guy that everybody really wanted to have around. That was my aim. That was my ambition. And to do that, I had to go out, and I remember going to the shopping mall, buying loads of clothes. I remember going and buying, whatever the latest technology thing was at that time. I remember going and trying to get all this stuff. I went to the hairdresser, and I got back, this is back then, I remember going into the hairdresser, and they used to do blonde highlights. It's almost as looked like they put a spaghetti strainer on top of your head, and then just kind of drip dye on it. That's kind of the idea. And I get these little blonde highlights all over my hair. I even went and got my ear pierced. Ha! How cool is that, okay? I remember sitting in this chair, and this woman is ready to pierce my ear, and I'm thinking, this is going to make me cool. This is going to make me manly. Bang! Ah! It absolutely hurt like mad. I'm not as free as I thought I would be. I pursued all this stuff. I pursued it all thinking that it would make me free. All of these things. Man, when I was that age, basketball trainers were the coolest thing that you could have at that age. I remember I had these basketball trainers. None of you are going to remember this, okay? This is a reference that's going to be lost on most of you, but follow me through this. These basketball trainers had this little pump up at the top, and you could pump air into your basketball trainer. Now, like the clever people you are, I know what you're all thinking right now is, what possible purpose is there to pumping air into your trainer? I want you to know the answer is this: none at all. None whatsoever. It serves no purpose whatsoever. But if you had them, you were seen as cool, or at least so I thought. But whether it was the earring, whether it was the blonde highlights, whether it was the basketball trainers, whatever it was, all these things that I pursued, you know what? They let me down. And ultimately, I let myself down. I became a slave to all of these things. I thought that they would bring me freedom. No, they didn't bring me freedom at all. It was actually the opposite that took place. These things took my freedom. I became a slave to all of these things. What does the Bible have to say about freedom? It's a big topic in the Bible. Tonight, we're going to focus on one verse together, okay? Just one verse together. This is from Galatians chapter 5, and it's verse 1. And here's what it says. It says, "For freedom, Christ has set us free. Stand firm, therefore, and do not submit again to a yoke of slavery." This is in the book of Galatians, which is in the New Testament. It's kind of in the second half of the Bible. And this book of the Bible was actually a letter that a guy named the Apostle Paul wrote to some people in a part of what is now modern-day Turkey called Galatia, okay? He's writing this letter to them, and if you read the rest of the letter, there's a really kind of irritable type tone in the rest of the letter. He's a bit agitated. He's a bit frustrated. He's a bit upset about something. So he writes this letter. How many of you have been on Facebook and you saw something in your newsfeed that a friend said or somebody said, and you've just got really angry? You're like, oh, every time I see that Farmville thing, I get so angry. Stop cluttering up my newsfeed with Farmville. Maybe you've seen something that your friends posted on Facebook, and you've seen it and you've gone, oh, that really makes me angry. So you get into the messages and you send a message and you click send and you're like, oh, shouldn't have done that. Or maybe somebody sent you a text and you've read it and I don't know, maybe they've insulted you or maybe they've said something that you're not very happy about. And you go for the really quick reply and press send. You're angry, you're irritated, you're frustrated, you're agitated. Is this what's going on with Paul? Has he written this letter and kind of puts it in the post, or back then, I don't know, put it on a donkey or on a ship or something like that? And has he sent this letter off, and is he thinking, oh man, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that. And then it just ends up being in the Bible by accident? Well, let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at that tonight. Let's find out why it is that Paul's so agitated in the tone of the rest of this letter. Now, as I was saying, this was written by the Apostle Paul. He was writing to a group of Christians in Galatia. And he was really interested in these guys because the very fact that they were Christians, what I mean by that is the very fact that they had said, Jesus, you're number one in my life. I'm no longer living for myself, but Jesus, I'm going to live for you. The very fact that these people believed that was largely because of Paul's influence. It was largely because he had invested so much time in them. It was largely because he was there helping them get churches going, helping them out with practical problems. He had a real interest in this group of people. He had spent time there. He had spent time with them. So he writes this letter to them with this kind of irritated, kind of agitated sort of tone. It's important that we understand the context of what's going on here before we try to understand this verse. And to do this, I want to get a friend of mine to come up here. I want to give you a bit of a visual illustration to help you understand kind of the wider context of what's happening in this verse. So some friends are going to kind of bring a thing up here to help us out with this. Could you welcome my friend Johnny to the stage? Where's Johnny? Come on, Johnny. There he is. He's a legend, this guy. How you doing, Johnny?
I'm doing well, yeah.
It's good to have you here, mate. Okay. Johnny is wondering what in the world he has gotten himself into tonight. You still up for this? Yeah. What's the worst that can happen, right? Paul was writing this letter to people who were already Christians. He was writing this letter to people who knew what it was like to be enslaved by sin. And what I mean by that is he was writing this letter to people who knew that everything that separates us from God, everything that makes us imperfect, everything that makes us unholy, he was writing this letter to people that knew that all of these things meant that we were distant from God, that we were separated from God. And sin can bind us up. Sin can really grab a hold of us. Now, it could be any number of things. It could be some things that we consider to be the big things. It could be things like murder. It could be things like adultery. It could be what we would consider to be the big things that you don't do. But you know what? It could also be some of the smaller things. Maybe it's gossiping. Maybe it's talking badly about other people, because when you talk about other people, it means that the attention is off of you. So you put the attention onto somebody else. Maybe it's just telling what's, we use that little expression, don't we? A little white lie. Oh, it's just a little white lie. And it could have been anything in between. These things can bind us up. They actually restrict our freedom. They can trap us. They can take us in. They can promise us freedom. They can promise us the world, but they don't deliver on it. So not only were they bound in this sin, but it was like they were being trapped in a cage. Tough break, dude. Okay, let's go. So this sin that they're trapped in, it binds them, it restricts their freedom. In we go. Well done, Johnny. It restricts their freedom, and it's like a huge lock is put on the outside of it. And it's like the key. It's like there's no hope. It's like there's no hope at all. It's like we're there, we're trapped, we're bound by this sin, and there's no hope. Some of you are here tonight, and you think that you're living as a free person, when in reality, the exact opposite is true. I want to ask you an honest question tonight. I want to ask you a really honest question tonight. What are the things in your life that make you know that you're imperfect, that you're unholy? See, tonight you're in a city that is a very spiritual city. You're in a city where most people in this city believe that God exists. In fact, even if you're here tonight and you're not a Christian, and you're here tonight going, all this God stuff is kind of weird, chances are you still believe that God exists. So it makes sense for us, if God exists, to believe that God must be perfect. Because if God isn't perfect, then God is really no different than you or I, except he's somewhere out there and we're somewhere over here. So if God isn't perfect, let's not bother wasting our time with him. Let's just worship each other or worship ourselves. Now, there's a problem here, is that if we're honest with each other, we know that we are not perfect ourselves. This morning, I got up out of bed, I was awake for 10 seconds, I tripped on my own pants and fell on the floor. Is that a God you want to worship? Probably not. I was awake for 10 seconds, and I was already on the floor. What about you? What are the little things, the little trivial things like that? Doesn't really matter, but what are some of the more substantial things? What are the things in your life that even right now, you're thinking, yeah, that's some pretty good evidence that I'm not God. See, God is holy. That means that he is completely perfect. And sin is anything that is inside of us that leads to our imperfection. You know what? It's not even things that you do yourself. It might be things that have been done to you. It might be things that you don't even have direct responsibility over. It might be things that you have been a victim of, or different occurrences that have taken place in your life that make you feel dirty, that make you feel impure, that make you know that you're not perfect. Sin traps us, whether it's sin that we've committed ourselves or if it's sin that has been committed against us. But ultimately, all sin is committed against God. Even the things that have been done to you, the offenses that have been done against you, even more than you, as harmful as they may be, as much as they might hurt, ultimately, they've been done against God. But Paul, in Galatians chapter 4, a few verses before the verse that we looked at a few minutes ago, he says these incredible words. He says, "But when the fullness of time had come, God sent forth his Son, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem those who were under the law so that we might receive adoption as sons." I want to tell you what he's talking about. If there's anything you take away from tonight, I want you to take this. This is the most important thing to hear. What Paul is saying here is that when God said, now the time is right, God sent his only Son, Jesus Christ, into the world to live the life that you should have lived and that I should have lived. And you might be thinking, well, no, surely Jesus, he didn't face the same things that I faced. No, that's not true. The Bible says that he was tempted in every way. Guys that are here that are tempted with porn, that are tempted with lust, that are tempted with all these things, you think, no, the Son of God, he wouldn't have been tempted that way. He was. You need to know that. If you're here tonight and you're thinking, maybe like that Lily Allen song, you're thinking, everything's cool as long as I'm getting thinner. Your day is determined about whether it's a good day or a bad day by what you weigh, or by a compliment that you receive, or whether you got the latest shirt or the latest jeans or the latest trainers or anything like that. You need to know that Jesus Christ coming into the world and living the life that you and I should have lived means something extravagant for you. It means something enormous for you. It means something immeasurable for you. When the fullness of time had come, God sent his Son, Jesus Christ, into the world to live the life that you and I should have lived. And not only that, he took the punishment that you and I deserved. See, God is a God of justice. God is a God of justice. And every one of you in this room want God to be a God of justice. Remember Coney 2012, just a few months ago? Coney 2012. The entire world, through Facebook and Twitter and everything else, was crying out for justice against this man and against what this man represented. We all want to believe in a God of justice, except when justice comes to us. Then it changes. Then what do we say? Oh, that's not fair. But I'm an exception. That doesn't apply to me. No, God is a God of justice. And his justice applies even to you and even to me. Jesus Christ coming and living the life that you and I should have lived, and going to the cross at Calvary. We just celebrated Easter last weekend. That's the very thing that we're celebrating. Jesus going to the cross. Jesus paying the price. Jesus taking on himself the punishment that you deserved and that I deserve. And when Jesus did that, it's like he came back and he had this key and he was able to unlock this lock. And not only that, but the door comes completely open. And then, and you guys got to get this, he doesn't just say, okay, I've freed you, come out. He comes in to our mess. And he takes anything that is binding us, he takes it off. He comes into our mess, and he helps us out of it. He gets into the mess with us, and we are free. Is that good? It's good. Thank you, Johnny. Thanks very much. Now, it's important that we understand something about these verses that we're looking at tonight. Galatians 5, verse 1. It's important that we understand that it's not just that we are saved out of something. It's not just that we're saved and kind of let loose, and then God just says, okay, you're free. You know, the rope's there, the door's open, the lock's here. Okay, I'm going to leave you to it. No. Remember what that verse said in chapter 4? It said that we've been adopted as sons and daughters of God. We have been adopted. Guys, this is not just about what we have been saved from. It's about what we've been saved to. It's amazing. I'm adopted myself. About 32 years ago, my parents started going through the application process for adopting a child in Eastern Canada. And it cost them a lot. Let me tell you that. It cost them a huge, huge amount. They had to spend a huge amount of money on lawyers because there's loads of legalities when you want to adopt a child. They had to spend many hours, countless hours. The total sum of it would have been days doing paperwork, sitting down with people who were interviewing them, trying to assess whether this would be an appropriate, a safe family for an adopted child to come into. They went through all of this stuff. They hadn't even met me. They didn't even know me. They didn't even know when I was coming along. Adoption is costly, really costly. But then, about 31 years ago, the phone rang on November 8th, 1981. And it was a hospital in a city 2 hours away from where I lived, where I grew up, rather. And it was the hospital saying, "We've got a son for you." My parents got in the car and they drove and they picked me up. That's the first time that I met my parents. They had put all this effort in. They had put all the work in themselves. There was nothing that I brought to the table myself, except a diaper and a bit of poo. Who would want that? There was nothing of worth. There was nothing of value that I was able to bring myself to my parents. You know what? It didn't matter. Why? Because they had chosen me. They had adopted me. They had made the choice. We are going to adopt a son. We are going to spend the money. We are going to fill out the paperwork. We are going to sit through the countless interviews because we've chosen to adopt him. Guys, this is what God has done for us. There's nothing that you bring to the table with God. There's nothing you've got that God needs. That's a tough thing to hear, isn't it? There's nothing you've got that God needs. God doesn't need you at all. But friends, let me tell you tonight, he wants you more than you could ever imagine. He wants you so much that he would send his only son, Jesus Christ, to take the punishment that you deserved and that I deserved. That is how much God loves you. Because we've been adopted as sons and daughters of God, it means that we can look at some of these words in the Lily Allen song where she says, "I want to be famous." We can cry out, "God, I want to be famous." And God says, "You're my son, you're my daughter, you're royalty." We can say, "I want to be rich." God says, "I'm going to give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven." We can say, "I want lots of different things." We can say, I want to have good relationships with my friends. I want all of these different things. And God says, "Look, in the right context, I want these things for you as well, but not in a way that you're going to be a slave to them." And ultimately, we can cry out, "God, I want to be free." And God says, "I've bought your freedom through the finished work of my son, Jesus Christ. I've purchased it for you. Have it." Now, like many Christians, I suspect many people even here in the room tonight, unfortunately, our story with the Galatians doesn't end right there. They knew what it was like to respond to this good news of Jesus. They knew that what he had done on the cross had set them free from sin. But guess what they do? They go and they celebrate it, and they kind of run a victory lap, and then they come back in, and they go back into a different cage. They go into a cage of religion. They go into a cage where they think they have to keep all these different rules and all these different laws and observe all this different stuff because their performance matters to God. But this time when they're in the cage, the door's still open, the rope's still on the floor in front of them, the lock is still not doing what a lock is made to do of holding something shut. It's been completely broken itself. They're in the cage on their own choice. They've replaced being a slave to sin with being a slave to religion, with being a slave to thinking, my performance still matters. In order for God to accept me, I've got to do all this stuff. Friends, how many of us here tonight live our lives that way? How many of you tonight know that you've responded to the good news of Jesus Christ? You would say that you're a Christian. You would say that you've surrendered your life to Jesus, but you're living in the back of the cage with the front door wide open. You've become a slave to religion. You've become a slave to thinking, I've got to do all these things in order for God to accept me. I want you to know that if we say that, if we say, there are things that I have to do in order to meet my approval, in order for God to welcome me in, there's stuff that I have to do. What you're doing is you're essentially saying that Jesus, when you were on that cross, and when your arms were spread, and when you're being crucified for me, when you were taking the punishment that I deserved, and in your last breath, when you said, it is finished, well, Jesus, it actually wasn't. because I still have to do all this stuff to be accepted by God. Friends, let's hear these words that are being spoken tonight. For freedom, Christ set us free. For freedom, Christ has set you free. That means freedom from sin, and it also means freedom from religion. And you think, so my behavior doesn't matter at all? In terms of your acceptance to God, no. But it changes why we want to go to God and say, I do want to do what you ask of me, because I am so thankful for Jesus Christ. Are you thankful for Jesus Christ tonight? I'm thankful for Jesus Christ tonight. He has broken the very thing that held me captive. He has undone the lock. He's opened the door. For freedom, Christ has set us free. Stand firm, therefore, and do not submit again to a yoke of slavery.